the recording on it. All right. Well, welcoming our picture book authors here. I'm so excited to have a conversation with all of you about your work. We're going to start with Aya, and maybe take a few seconds to introduce yourself and tell us about who you are.
Sure. My name is Aya Khalil. I am so excited to be here today. I write picture books. My debut book is called The Arabic Quilt. I'm not sure if it'll show up with the background. I don't think it did. The Arabic Quilt came out in 2020. My second book is called Our World Egypt, and that came last fall. And then The Night Before I just was published in March. And then I have another upcoming book called The Great Banned Books Bake Sale, and that's coming out in August.
Oh, awesome. Can you tell us what your intersectionality is? You are a...
Sure. So I am an Egyptian Muslim.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Nadine? You're muted.
I'm so excited to be here too. I'm Nadine Presley. I am a Syrian Canadian author. My upcoming book is The City of Jasmine in winter of 2025, and then a couple of books after will follow that are not announced yet.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
The City of Jasmine is basically an ode to Damascus. Damascus is the city of jasmine. It's a walk through the city away from what you see on the media of the destruction and kind of defining a place by the last few years, while Damascus is the oldest capital in the world. So I just wanted to shed light on the beauty of the city away from the destruction that is always portrayed in the media.
Thank you. And Rafik?
So my name is Rifk Ibed, and I'm a Palestinian American Muslim mother of three, and my educational background is in law, human rights, and speech language pathology. And I have two children's picture books that I wrote. One is called Baba, What Does My Name Mean? A Journey to Palestine. And the one that was released this year is called You Are the Color.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about your books and your work?
Yeah, so Baba, What Does My Name Mean is about a little girl who's asking why she was named Samida, which means somebody who's persistent and who perseveres. So in order to understand that, she has to know where she came from, and because she's a Palestinian. So it takes you throughout different cities in Palestine and lets you know what they were known for throughout history, and just teaches adults, both children and adults, about different Palestinian cities that most people might not know about. So in order to understand herself and to understand why she was named that, she has to understand where she came from first.
Thank you. And Aya, you didn't tell us about your book, so maybe you can tell us about, I love the one that I've been seeing lately, the one about Eid. Since it's Ramadan, the one maybe you can tell us about the book that's coming out for Eid, because that seems like it's fitting.
Sure. So the one that just came out is called The Night Before I Eat, and it's a story about a little kid named Zain, and he bakes kahk al-Eid, which are cookies. I don't know why it doesn't show up here. He makes cookies with, there it is. He makes cookies with his teta, grandma, and yeah, they just bake, and they're excited to share it with his classmates like after Eid, the day after Eid. And it's just filled with a lot of joy and love and intergenerational love.
Love that. Can each of you tell me a little bit about how your identity and the intersections of your identity and your identity markers kind of fall into your work or impact your work and your lived experiences as well? I don't know if we want to start with Aya maybe, and then we can go around again.
Sure. So I always make sure to have Arabic words in my books. It's a simple thing, but I think it really has a big impact on kids, especially Arab kids, for them to see the Arabic words in there. It just normalizes the Arabic language. And I always like to include some type of Arabi food. So in this one, obviously, they're cookies, Eid cookies. For the Arabic quilt, I have kofta. And for Our World Egypt, I have molokhia. So a lot of food
It's always
It's traditional foods, which I love. And I think the concept
Mm.
here for a lot of the teachers that are listening is the translanguaging piece. If you have a lot of ELL students, and I think with a lot of the unrest in the Middle East, we have a lot more kids that are coming in from refugee backgrounds and just coming in from different countries overseas. The ability for them to really leverage something that's familiar to them and use their language, even in an English classroom, I found is something super powerful. And so to all the teachers that are listening, as a teacher, I've encouraged a lot of my students to, when they're writing poetry or writing essays, to use their language in their writing. These are great pieces to kind of demonstrate how that works and to translanguage. And that is oftentimes the research shows that they are able to really obtain a lot more of the English language when they're able to kind of mix it into their own language. And what it says to kids too is what you are and who you are really matters. So let's get rid of that double consciousness and kind of bring our whole selves into this space. I love that. Thank you. Nadine?
It's so well said. I think that is very relevant to also the way I bring my identity into my books. I'm going to speak specifically about the first one, which is the City of Jasmine. Having lived both in Syria and in Canada, I kind of noticed the shift in how people react to who you are over the years and the growth of how many years Syria has been in conflict. And the answer has become more of, where are you from Syria? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear it, or I'm so sorry. It has become very linked to this feeling of just being very like linked to the rubble and destruction that people are always seeing in the media, and kind of stripping the place and the people of the actual culture that has been that is Syria and Damascus, being the oldest capital in the world. And I just and I feel that through this book, and I just want people to see beyond what they see on the media and just look at the people and their culture and kind of forget anything or any of the struggle that is going on. And that's mostly what I'm trying to do through the City of Jasmine.
And I think that's beautiful, because what I've encountered working with teachers all over the country and having conversations about Arabs in general, and in looking at curriculum from school and district after district, oftentimes the way Arabs are portrayed in curriculum is from a violent perspective, right? And so, it's really a deficit mindset. And so that's why we were very intentional when we were thinking about this event, to really focus on the joys and the history and the beauty of the culture and the wonderful things that are often missed. Because when we do talk about Arabs, we're either talking about their lack of ability to coexist and the violence that is kind of the perception that is surrounding their bodies, or the tragedies that are currently happening in a lot of the Middle Eastern world. And those tragedies are often portrayed as a result of the violence and our inability to coexist, right? Not all of these kind of powers that be meddling with and kind of creating the context that we're living in today. And so the lack of understanding around why these conflicts are actually happening and what these countries were way before. And as a Palestinian, right, way before 1948, Palestine was such a beautiful established country. And a lot of people don't know that, because it's always sold as a land for a people without a land. And so the beautiful cities and the culture that was there before the occupation is never, ever discussed. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Liv?
Yeah, I consider my books like giving you me in writing. So it's exactly what I wish I had as a kid and what I hope for my kids to have. And I think that I was just so sick of my entire life, of my identity as a Palestinian either being denied or questioned. And so I really wrote these books primarily for other Palestinian children to have something that they can turn to, where they don't have to worry, what is the map going to look like? What are they going to say? Is it going to talk about me correctly? Just not have any of that anxiety when they go to open up a book. Because like you said, if we are discussed, which usually we're not, but if and when we are, it's usually through stereotypes and just incorrect information. And so that's also one of the reasons I think that I lean towards self-publishing as well, because I just didn't want to keep experiencing the negativity and the no and the editing and the sanitizing of who I am and what I want to say. And so I feel like they're a piece of my heart being presented to the kids. And I hope that they feel that when they read it.
There's so many things that you said that I really want to highlight and touch on, because my research has focused on the perceptions of inclusion and belonging of Arab students in public schools. And I found that the Palestinian students are the students that really struggle the most to claim that identity because of the bipartisan and antagonistic perspective that we have surrounding Palestinian students in general, politically in our country, and the support that we are kind of giving to the occupation of Palestine. And so I feel like really putting Palestinian on a platform to some degree so that people can really understand and humanize that perspective, because it's been butchered, and it really is the story of the hunter killing the lion, and we're only hearing the story of the hunter all the time, personified in so many different ways. And I have gone through all of my schooling and lived in school spaces ever since I've graduated from school. And I think the only time that I've ever seen myself accurately represented was in a pin in an expo hall in the ISTE conference last June. And that little pin made me cry for hours, because I thought to myself, this is the first time in an educational space that I see myself accurately reflected. And it's not even in curriculum, it's in a pin. And it was such a powerful moment for me as a 40-year-old woman. Can we imagine how powerful it is when kids are actually getting a picture of themselves in a text that's being studied and read? But the other side of it is, how dangerous is it when we're immersing our children and giving a window to other children of only a stereotypical lens, right? How does that feel when we're only giving them an opportunity to see themselves as a stereotype? That's really beautiful. And you touched on something that I want to ask Nadine and Aya. What are some challenges in the publishing world that you faced, if you faced any at all?
I guess I can talk about this a little bit. So yeah, like Rivka said, just getting into the publishing world is really challenging in itself. So I had a lot of challenges, because a lot of times people really, they don't want our stories, right? So, or they want a certain type of story. They don't want you as a whole, you know, you and like all of your stories. So that's been challenging. It took like several months to find an agent, and then another few months for my debut to sell the Arabic quilt, because publishers were taking a risk. Like they were saying, hey, I don't know this author. I don't know, are people going to read immigrant stories? Are they going to read Muslim stories? Are they going to read Egyptian Arab stories? So we were getting a lot of rejections. And then at one point, you know, a small independent publisher, you know, they wanted to acquire it, and they took that risk. They took that risk to publish an unknown author, a story about immigrants. And this was during the time where immigrants were looked down upon, because this was around like 2017, 2018 during the Muslim ban. So but I'm glad it got picked up though. But that's one of the challenges.
Thank you. Thank you all. I wish we had more time. I could talk to you for hours and hours, but unfortunately the time is limited. I want to encourage everybody to purchase the books of these wonderful authors, use them in your classroom, give the kids an opportunity to see themselves reflected accurately in these texts, support our authors so that they can continue writing and we can continue to get published. If you are a publisher, reach out to these beautiful authors and see what they can, what they can produce for you, because we need these voices in our classrooms. We will link the texts and the books and also this to the show notes so that people can access these as resources. Share with your classroom, have these conversations in your classroom. Kids need to read the world, right? And so in that reading, we need to know that there are voices that are intentionally silenced in a lot of our work, and that we really need to overcome them. And by elevating those voices in classroom spaces and school spaces in the publishing world in every way that we can. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and we'll hopefully see your books in classrooms everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I also wanted to announce that in addition to using my book as a resource, we actually are going to be premiering, I think, the first of its kind short children's animation about a Palestinian American girl in the school setting. And I made it really specifically for teachers to use in their classrooms, because it touches on so many subjects that come up for us as Arab Americans, like the world map, flags, identity, all of that. So we can hopefully also link where it's going to be showing in different film festivals around the US.
I am so excited. The Chicago Film Festival I know is featuring it, so I've seen little tidbits of it, and I feel like, yay, at least my grandkids will have these mirrors that my children didn't have. So I'm super excited. Thank you for adding that and for sharing. All right.